Daniel chapter 5, lesson 6, part 1. Please notice chapter 5 is not in chronological order. If Daniel followed a chronological timeline, the chapter order would fall 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. I suppose there are numerous possible reasons for the order as presented. I can say this: as presented, chapters 7 through 12 provide detailed prophetic accounts. Chapters 2 through 6, as presented, concentrate on God's glory. Earthly kings are humbled before him. When Nebuchadnezzar died around 556 BC, there was a good deal of intrigue. Within a few years the kingdom came into the hands of Nabonidus. He was probably a near relative of Nebuchadnezzar, though some have argued that Nabonidus was not directly related to Nebuchadnezzar. At any rate, Nabonidus and his son Belshazzar are known historical figures. Belshazzar was the firstborn son of Nabonidus. Nabonidus spent most of his days away from Babylon. He was in Tiamia when the Babylonian Empire fell. Due to his frequent absence, Nabonidus made Belshazzar his co-regent. As co-regent, Belshazzar shared the throne. That is why Belshazzar could only offer Daniel a place as third highest ruler. See 5:16 and 5:29. In chapter 5, verses 2, 11, 13, and 18, some translation of Nebuchadnezzar as Belshazzar's father. The Hebrew word can mean father. It can also mean ancestor or even successor. Perhaps Nebuchadnezzar was his grandfather or even his great-grandfather. However we look at it, Nebuchadnezzar was acknowledged as predecessor to Belshazzar and Nabonidus. Belshazzar gives a great banquet on what would turn out to be his last day as king. Daniel 5:1. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. He had the gold and silver goblets from God's temple brought in, and they drank from them, praising the gods of gold and silver, etc. Daniel 5:2 and 3. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from it. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. The true God was not pleased. Daniel 5:4. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. And a hand appeared, no body attached, and wrote on the wall. That's where we get the expression, the writing on the wall. 5:5. In the same hour came forth the fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. No one was able to read the writing. The king was terrified. Daniel 5:6 and 7. Then the king's face was changed in him, and his thoughts troubled him, and the joints of his loins were loosened, and his knees struck one against the other. The king cried aloud to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke and said to his wise men of Babylon, "Whoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation of it shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Daniel 5:8 and 9. Then came all of the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his face was changed in him, and his lords were perplexed. The queen hears the voices and the commotion. The queen was most likely Belshazzar's mother or grandmother. She knew of Daniel and his ability to interpret and solve difficult problems. She suggested Daniel be called. Daniel 5:10 and 11. Now the queen, by reason of words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house. The queen spoke and said, "O king, live forever. Don't let your thoughts trouble you, nor let your face be changed. There is a man in your kingdom, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And in the days of your father light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. The king Nebuchadnezzar, your father, the king, I say, your father made him master of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and soothsayers." Daniel 5:12. Because an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and showing of dark sentences, and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Daniel was able to read the writing. Daniel 5:13 and 14. Then was Daniel brought in before the king. The king spoke and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel, who are of the children of captivity of Judea, whom the king my father brought out of Judea? I have heard of you, that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that the light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you." 5:15. Now the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me the interpretation of it, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. Daniel 5:15 and 16. But I have heard of you that you can give interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me the interpretation of it, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold about your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered before the king, "Let your gifts be to yourself, and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king, and make known to him the interpretation." The end of Daniel 5, Lesson 6, Part 1.